Hello! So I recently got myself this nice RC-505 loop station, and if you're anything like me, then you don't like reading manuals. So I was hoping that there is a video that explained all the settings. However, I didn't find one that was detailed enough, so I had to figure it out myself. And now I'm making this video that I was looking for. Let's get to it! Oh, hello there, welcome. So basically there are several different settings. There are the system settings, the memory settings, the rhythm settings, the track settings, and the track effects and input settings. I'm gonna walk you through them. We're not gonna talk about track effects today because that's a whole different story. We could make a whole separate video about that. Let's start with track settings. Those are the settings for each of the tracks. So each of them have their own settings. You can access them by hitting this edit button. Alright, let me quickly record something so we have something to play around with. Wow 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 wow. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Okay, just so we have something here so that I can show you stuff. Right, track settings, you can find them here. First setting, whether or not the track is played in reverse. Pretty self-explanatory. If you play the track, and this is what it sounds in reverse. Next setting, the level, so how loud it is. This is not the same as the fader though. The fader is a separate thing. Next up, we can pan it to the left or the right. If you're using stereo output, which you should, this makes sense. Then you can have it in one shot. It's now not a one shot because it's playing in the loop. If I set it to one shot, I have to stop it first. Then it's just playing once. And I can start it like this. Next up, track effects. Whether or not the effects apply to this track. When you start or stop a track effect, then you see those buttons blink, right? It's the same if you hit this button now and it's not blinking anymore. That means that the track effect is not applied anymore. So track effects is off. You can set it to on again. Then it's applied. And now it's off. And now it's on. Make sense? Good. Next up, we have play mode, multi. So if I have multiple tracks going, and I set this one to single, I have to stop it again. And I set track 2 to single as well. Then only one of those two tracks can play at a time. So if I hit this one, the other one immediately stops. For all the tracks that are in single mode, only one can play at a time. Next up, the start mode. You can fade in your track by setting this to fade in. Then it will get louder and louder until it's faded in. Same thing for fading out. You can, when you play the track and you stop it, and it fades out. You can also set this to loop end. So when you play it and then you stop it, it will play until the loop end. And then it will stop. Next up, measure. This is basically the length of the track. So here we have two measures. Count 1, 2. Here we also have two measures and here we also have two measures. On the clean track, it is set to auto, which means it will also put two measures, which is the loop length. So if I record something here, it will automatically get two measures, and after two measures it will start overdubbing immediately. I can, however, set it to free. Then I have the freedom to record as many measures as I want. Just keep recording, 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 and then I now picked 6 measures and now it's overdubbing. I usually have all my tracks always on free. Auto makes sense if you're recording with instruments and you don't have hands free to press the button. But as I usually just use the mic, I always have my tracks on free. You can also set a specific length, so either in measures or even in beats. So this is like super short now. Also works. And after you record it, you can't change it anymore. Okay, those are the measures. Then, loop sync. If you play, those 2 loops are in sync, but if I stop this track and put it out of sync, I can now start it whenever I want. For instance, here. Or here. Because they're not synced anymore. Which, in that case, is not nice. So I'm gonna turn it on again. Okay. Then, there's the tempo sync. If it's on, that means that if you change the tempo, it also changes the track. However, if you set this to off, and then you play that, and you change the tempo, then this track, which is tempo synced, gets slower. This doesn't. But since it's still loop synced, it will also wait until the next loop starts. And those are all the track settings. Great, now we can continue to the rhythm section. Basically, you can play a beat. This is pretty fast now because it's like twice the speed that I imagined it to be. And of course you can adjust the volume of that. Then next up you can change the pattern. It has a lot of different. I also like the metronome, which is at the very end. But this is super fast now. Then you can set the beat. Not anymore because we've already recorded stuff. Then of course also you can select different patterns if you have different beats. But I'm not gonna go through all of those, that's just way too much. You can specify whether this plays on the output, so the line out, or just on the phones, which is currently what I have plugged in. You can set the rec count. You can say that before recording it should count you in, so it counts me in and now it starts recording. I can also do this for play. Before it starts playing, it counts me in and then it starts actually playing. Then we can specify when this rhythm should stop. Either it stops when the looper stops, so if the looper stops, then this stops as well. We can set it to off. Then I can start it and stop it and it keeps going. We can set it to rec end, so if I record something and I stop recording, then it stops. But I prefer to have it on looper stop. All of the settings make sense. It's just a matter of what you're actually doing. That's all the rhythm stuff now. Okay, let's continue with the memory. Again, this is the master level. Louder or pretty self-explanatory. Then the tempo, we've also discussed that before. This is, by the way, the same thing as if you hit this button, and you can also set the tempo by pressing the tempo tab and then turn it up again. Yeah, it's like twice the tempo that I thought it should have. But whatever. After the tempo, we have a global compressor. I'm not gonna go into detail what a compressor actually does. Basically, it makes loud sounds more quiet and quiet sounds louder. The default is -20. You can turn it up though. That's a bit too much. I usually have it at like a -4 or something. And then you can apply global reverb. I think I don't need to explain what a reverb is. Right? But I also usually just have it like very low, just a little bit. Yeah. So that you don't really recognize it, but it does make a difference. And this is applied to all the tracks. Yeah. Then, this is new in version 2. Input effects, you can set them to multi. On single, you can only use one of the input effects at once. However, if you set it to multi, then you can have 3 at the same time. However, this also means that some of the effects are only available at A and some are only available at C. For instance, the reverb is only available at C and stuff like guitar to bass is only available at A. Same thing with the track effects. You can also set them to multi to use multiple things. And then again, things like beat repeat will only be on A and things like reverb will only be on C. Also, quick side note here, if you have it in multi, then this is applied first, this second, this third. So it does make a difference if you have, for instance, a filter on A or on C if you're using another effect in the middle. And this is also the reason why some effects are only available at A and some only at C. Also, some effects can't be used simultaneously. For instance, tape echo can't be used if I have guitar to bass activated. But again, track effects and all the different settings there are too much for this video. I might make a separate one for that. Then, your output. What should be output here at the phones jack? On main, it outputs as you hear it, so with all the effects. But if you set it to monitor, then the effects will not be applied if you output it, right? If you set it to main, you'll have the effect as well. Okay, then overdub mode.
Oh yeah.
Usually when you start recording,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
it will overdub. But if I set that to replace and I record,
Oh yeah.
then it replaces this part.
Oh yeah.
Then you can specify what should happen after the initial recording, so after this part. It will immediately go to overdub. I can also say that it should go into play. If I record here, and then it starts playing immediately. This makes a lot of sense if you're using the replace, but I don't see why you would use the replace. I like my overdub. Then, for all the single play tracks, you can select when they should start playing. Either they start immediately or at loop end. So, for instance, at loop end, it will wait until the end of the loop, until this starts. At immediate, you can switch immediately. Makes sense, right? Okay, pretty self-explanatory as well. Okay. Then, quantize at rec end. Quantize basically helps you to stay in the beat, so if you're a bit off hitting the button too early or too late, this will help you. And you can set that at the recording start and end, or even at each measure, or even closer at each beat. If I have my beat going on, and I'm like recording, and then I quite didn't get it, but it still has two measures. When I set that to beat, so I can have one beat here, right? Anyway, I'm usually fine with just having it at rec end. The loop length, this is what the loops are synchronized to. So here we have the two measures. That's our loop length. So one of this recording, that is our loop length. I can also set it to 1. If I record something here with 3 measures. And I set this to 4. Then this has to wait because the loop length is 4 and this is only 3, and it will, after 4, it will restart. If I was to set it to, say, 8,
yeah.
Then it fits in twice. We have 6, and now it has to wait for 2 measures until it starts again, right? I hope this makes sense. Right, but if we have it to 1, then all of them can just play continuously.
If I record something here with 3 measures.
And the 2?
Record something here with 3 measures. If I record something here with 3
The multiple of 2 is 4, so after 4 it will... Okay, I hope that made sense. Okay, you can select which of the tracks should start playing if you hit play all. Now, if I set it like this, then only those 3 tracks will start. And I can do the same with the stopping. I say I don't want this to stop. If I hit all stop, then this will keep going. And I need to stop it like this. Yeah. Then we have the fade time. We saw the fade in and fade out earlier. Fade time is 2 means, so 2 measures, and we can change that to, you know, more or less as we like. And then we have a lot of settings for foot switches and other external devices, but I don't have one, and it's we don't want to make this video too long, right? So we're gonna just skip that. We left out one more thing. System settings. The system settings are global across the entire RC-505, so it doesn't matter which memory slot you're in, it will always have the same system settings. The memory and rhythm and track effects and track settings, those all belong to one memory slot. And if I want to save it, I just write it to that memory slot. The system settings don't have to be saved, they are saved each time. So let's see what we have here. Number 1, pretty self-explanatory, LCD contrast. I can turn the contrast up, but then my camera doesn't see shit, so I turn it down again. Phantom power, whether or not you put power on the mic jack. Some microphones need that, however, it's safe to keep it off unless your microphone is not working and it specifically needs that power, then you can turn it on. I'm not gonna do that because mine doesn't need that. Display. You can change what the basic display displays. So if you go all out, this is what it displays. Right now I set it to level, so it shows me the levels here, right? We can change that to, for instance, just display the memory number, or whether it's in which tracks are in reverse, or which tracks are one-shots, and which tracks are in multi-mode, and how much time remains, and which effect. But this is the same thing as if we go out here, now just showing the memory number, and then we hit the arrows, right? Now we're on level, now we're which tracks are in reverse, which tracks are one-shots, which tracks are in multi-mode, so this one is still in single mode apparently, how much recording time remains, and here, this is quite interesting as well, which of the effects parameters are changed by this knob. So for instance, now it's on C. If I use A, then it's on A. Because even if you're not using the effect, you can now still manipulate it, right? And it will always be the one that is used last. So for instance, now I would be on B. And now I would be on C. Even if I use them. And this thing manipulates the effect that you've seen here. So this can be helpful, or you just know which button you pressed last. ABC, ABC. For input effects and for track effects. Good. What else do we have here? The indicator, those things. They can show you the status of the track. So it's red if there's something recorded there. But then, but in the status it only displays one loop, right? I can set this to loop position, then it shows which position in the loop it's in. This is quite handy. But if I stop a track, it doesn't show me if there's something there or not. So a really nice thing is to have position and status, because then it does show me that. And it shows me where it is in the loop. So that's usually what I use. Then you can also display the level, which, you know, looks cool but is utterly useless, especially if you have the level outside anyway here. Auto off, on. That makes sense, right? So the auto off, basically after 10 hours the loop station will turn off. Yes, 10 hours is a very long time, so you can definitely keep that on if you forget to turn it off at one point. I don't think I'm ever gonna use it longer than 10 hours, so just keep that on. All clear. Per default this is disabled. You can enable it, and then what you can do is hit all start stop for 2 seconds, and all your tracks are suddenly gone. Good that we saved them, so we can just go back and here they are again. That's that. And then there is the quick clear. Usually if you want to clear a track, you have to long press the stop button. You can set that to enable, then you can clear the track by double pressing the stop. It happened to me sometimes that I accidentally cleared tracks. That's a bit annoying, but it is also super annoying if you have to hold it for 2 seconds for it to disappear if you just fucked up the start or something. So I do have it enabled, but you should be careful. The knob mode. This is something that is very badly explained. Even when reading the manual it didn't make sense to me, but I figured it out, so I'll show you. When using effects, let's use a filter because that's pretty obvious. With this knob I can change the parameters of the filter, right? Now, if I set it there, stop it, then use a different effect, turn that thing here. If I then go back, then it still has this thing until I turn it, but as soon as I turn it, it will take the position that it had, right? It will I just need to turn it a little bit and it will take that. If we now set this knob mode to hook, then if we apply the filter and we put the filter, let's say here, and then move it back with something else, and then apply the filter again, then it's still here, it's still pointing here, and it doesn't matter if I move it here, it still didn't get the hook because the hook is here. So I need to grab the hook here, and now I can bring it back. Does that make sense? So you need to go back to the last point where the parameter is set to pick it up. This makes sense if you want to have, you know, smooth transitions, but it also means that you need to remember where your hook is and stuff. So yeah, I have never used that. I always use it immediately. Then the noise suppression, whatever. The thing that is trying to get the noise down. You can set that between 0 and 100, where 100 has the most effect. I'll just leave that at standard settings. You can set the line output level, basically same thing as here, just the level of, you know, the output checks here. The input source, you can define whether it comes in as stereo or as mono. Input line out, this just means whether or not what you say in the microphone is put to the output, right? So I keep that on. Here you can specify whether this output level select should apply for the line output as well or just for the phones. And then it makes sense that you can adjust the level separately here. Then there are the settings for the USB. You can either have your USB device as an audio or MIDI device, where you can then record your audio, and also have the loop station as an external audio device for your computer. Or you can set it to storage, which basically makes this thing a flash drive so that you can access the internal SD card that is in the loop station. And then you can access all the loops you have stored. And then there are some more USB audio settings, whether the incoming audio goes into the looper, so you can record it, or it just goes to the output and back via the USB, or just to the line out. Then you can of course set the input and output levels, and then there are a bunch of settings for MIDI devices, but since I don't have a MIDI device, we're gonna skip that. At the end, you can factory reset your loop station, which I only recommend if you made a backup before. So, we're at the end now anyway. You go make a backup. By the way, another neat trick. If you're done setting up your effects and track settings and memory settings, you can save it, of course, but you can also save it to the user set. And that means that when you go to a different track, you could then load those user settings. Right, so I hope this video was informative for you. If you still have any questions, put them down in the comments below and I'll try to answer them, either in text or in another video. And if there's anything else that you want me to show you, just let me know as well. I think that's it. Make a backup, because you know how to do that now. Bye bye.